I'm doing this video to expose me and my daughter being trafficked by the government. In 2017, my daughter was illegally placed in a CP register just a few weeks before my due date, saying that I was mentally ill and I'd false reported crime, which was completely untrue. The council had a contaminated water report they were trying to cover up that took my son's life and the damage that it done to my daughter's system and my own. I had reported my ex in the past, but because his papa was an ex-mayor, I got absolutely abused off CID to stop me pursuing charges. After this was done, I went in to have my daughter at the local university hospital, and attempted manslaughter was committed on both of us, where my daughter sustained catastrophic injuries. When we got out of the hospital, all government authorities kept banding together and working in tandem, doing everything they could to destroy us. So in 2018, they had to take my child off the illegal CP register they'd placed my daughter on, but all government authorities kept monitoring and threatening and abusing us everywhere we went, even at our home. It was absolutely horrific, the abuse we were enduring. And after they took her off the CP register, the council started sending out teams of men for a one-man job, and they were in such a horrific manner. In 2018, I had to pay my GP practice to do a letter to the housing and to rehome us into a habitable home. And when they rehoused us, it was straight into enslavement and repairs and false allegations. We're constantly getting abused and our human rights infringed. Teams of workmen were still being sent out, our stuff was getting damaged, my child was getting abused beyond what you could fathom of them. In 2020, I put my child into the local council nursery, and just before she started, all the staff was removed and replaced. She got sadistic treatment, sadistic injuries. I was treated inhumane. No investigations, no protocols was followed when I had to remove my daughter out the nursery after she lasted less than 3 days. I had agencies send my self-threatening letters. I was getting abused left, right and centre by authorities. I then put my daughter in another council nursery 20 minutes away, and I should never have done it. Within 9 weeks, she had a catalogue of injuries that was absolutely beyond horrific. She had damage to her middle, slashes in the backs of her legs, a massive head injury. She was head first in a lake. There was staff removed and replaced at that nursery. I was getting absolutely abused trying to get answers to what had actually happened. I was getting treated inhumane. I then was left with no option but to remove my daughter from the nursery in November 23rd, 24th, 2022. I got absolute abuse of authorities to try and silence us. It was beyond horrific. In 2022, an inspector would have been due to my home to ask why my daughter wasn't starting primary 1 education, because after what had happened at both council nurseries, I wouldn't put my child into council education. So to stop this from happening, on the 22nd of July 2022, my daughter and myself were held at home for over 7 hours, where teams of police, a sergeant, teams of social work and CPNs held us at home, mentally and physically abusing us for over 7 hours. I had been unlawfully and inhumanely mentally assessed in the past by a CPN who had said what the authorities had done was crazy, and I wasn't mentally ill, I was strong-willed. But they had sent out other CPNs that I'd never seen before, and they were so abusive beyond what you could fathom. After the 7 hours, they dumped me in a mental institution after kidnapping myself, where they tried to have everything covered up. I was absolutely abused for 68 hours, wasn't allowed a doctor, wasn't allowed a lawyer. When a doctor came in after the 68 hours, I was abused for a further almost 1 hour before having to be released. When I got out, I phoned the police to get my keys back because the police had stole my keys. And the sergeant who had abused my daughter and myself in her home on the 22nd of July was absolutely abusing me on the phone. I get no keys back. I had to get a locksmith to change my locks to get into my home. My daughter, after what she had to endure on the 22nd of July, was taken and absolutely abused for a further 4 hours by social work before being handed over to my family in an unrecognisable trauma state. They made my daughter stay with my family for 9 days, and she was unlawfully and inhumanely mentally assessed on the 4th day, where they got NHS staff to clear their backs and say she was fine, but she could be in a spectrum. When my daughter was allowed to return home after the 9 days, teams of police and social work continuously charged at her home up until the 7th of November, terrorising us, absolutely traumatising my daughter. On the 7th of November, teams of police, a sergeant and social work unlawfully entered her home again, absolutely invaded her home, had me ripped from my home and held in a police van while they ransacked my home, terrorised and abused my daughter. I was then taken and held in police custody for hours and absolutely abused. They tried to get me to take boxes of pills I hadn't been administered to take. One of the boxes of pills were out of date. They never phoned any solicitors that I'd asked them to phone. I was held in police custody. I didn't even know why I was being held. They told me it was a 38 I was in on, never explained that was a breach of the peace, when I never even committed a breach of the peace. I was trying to protect myself and my daughter while they were invading our home. When I eventually got out of police custody after hours of being held, I got let out in a warning when I did nothing wrong. My family informed myself that my daughter had been illegally placed into foster care. So I phoned social work to get my daughter returned immediately, and I was told I got a phone call back. I never got a phone call back. I was left phoning the next day, November the 8th, 2022, and I was told again I got a phone call back. I get no phone call back. They then went to court, never gave me a time or a date to be at court. After the teams of the social work came to my home, want me to sign papers for them to keep my child, when there's no way that I would sign anything for them to keep my child after they've done everything to destroy me and my daughter for over 5 years. They then went to court without giving myself a date or a time, committed contempt of court to keep my child, all authorities. They've all done that since, and at all illegal meetings that they've held. Sometimes they're not even informing me of hearings or court dates. I've not seen my child since she was abducted. When I got my child back last year after she was made to stay away for 9 days, she was in an absolute trauma state, so I can only imagine what condition she's in. Also, after I removed my daughter from the second council nursery, photographs surfaced of my daughter being taken out the nursery and led down to council offices and social work offices. And the outfit she had on that day at the nursery, minus the trousers they'd changed, was the same day she come back with damage to her middles and slashes in the backs of her leg and a massive head injury. I can only imagine what they've actually been subjecting her to and what they'll be subjecting my daughter to further, because they've absolutely lied and slandered myself through the court to keep my child. As I say, I've not seen her since the 7th of November. I don't know what condition she's in. I'm going to upload videos. I'm going to upload the images of her injuries from nursery, and you can see for yourself what they've done to her. And also I'll upload the trauma state I got my daughter back in the 30th of July last year. Please expose this. Share it as much as you can, because it needs exposing.